All right. I I wrote this about a year ago. This part of what I have. Uh, as a disclaimer, um, the following is presented as an instructional exercise. The examples used are solitary examples of that which is found in plethora throughout the records of humanity. Uh, do not fixate on the examples themselves, but allow their expression to exemplify that which is a part of the greater whole. And with that, let's begin. There is something wrong. So he poured out upon them his burning anger, the violence of war. It enveloped them in flames, yet they did not understand. It consumed them, but they did not take it to heart. That is Isaiah 42, verse 25. I suppose I'm sharing this as much for my own edification as for anyone who watches this. There is something wrong in the world and has been wrong for millennia, though not in the beginning, before the fall of man to the deceiver. It is as simple as evil, and as convoluted and conflictory as the machinations of evil. So inextricable is the hand of evil in the movements of nations throughout histories, that the task of seeking it out and destroying it seems to be impossible. Seems impossible. It is not, and the tide turns as the storm rises. The truth is, evil pretends at all the hallmarks of righteousness so well that to comprehend the difference is a matter entirely of faith. You have to ground yourself on a foundation that is external to your own subjective idea of what a thing should be or should not be. It is said that a well-formed empire is better than a barbaric collection of tribes because a collection of tribes are barbaric and civilization is civilized. It's a little bit of an oversimplification there. How can this make sense? In order that the barbarians be crushed, an empire forms its armies, marches upon the barbarians, and destroys them, reconstituting their lands with the same names and taking rulership of the people once ruled by the barbarians. The political system of an empire makes no difference, neither its religion nor its social structure. So it becomes simple. A king is a king, a peasant is a peasant, regardless of what it is called. There's nothing about that changed until about the middle of the 18th century. This has been a new front in the world. But it is not quite so new as you might think. I'll get into that another time. An empire is called great because of its conquests, and the people conquered are remembered fondly as a quaint group that failed to resist the empire. But should the empire become weak and is destroyed by the previously conquered people, the empire is fondly remembered as once great. The case of Rome is the best known example in Western history. The facts, of course, illustrate a very different image. That Rome was brutal, full of corrupt leaders, and almost constantly at civil war within itself. While I use Rome here as an example, the template can be successfully applied to any number of empires that have existed throughout the annals of history. The fact is, the falsehood put to pen by Karl Marx, that the ends justify the means, is a lie as ancient as the deceiver himself. There is in the story of empires a commonly recurring theme, and that the people of the Empire blame the Empire as a single unit when things go wrong. And the leaders of the Empire blame the people as a mass. As a compromise, the leaders of empires take their people to war to acquire more resource, and the people, both enjoying the spoils of war and detesting that they are taxed for the war, seek a new empirical standard. At the beginning of a successful war, the people resound with nationalistic pride. The war is waged, and the victor brings with it a sense of victory brings with it a sense of collective accomplishment. At the beginning of an unpopular war, the people grumble, but if conscripted, the majority stand in the ranks, and their people at home support them as they march off, at least initially, whilst claiming that they bear no support for the empire which has conscripted them. If an unpopular war is waged for long enough time, the people rebel, and the conscripted troops are turned on the people, and collectively the people attempt to overthrow the empire. If they are successful, the empire changes hands. If not, they are severely punished, and future generations will be led to forget that punishment, its cause, and its result. If only after being punished, they are given some sort of compensation for their losses, often in the form of nationalistic pride, or it was a dirty, nasty thing that we had to do, but it was for the greater good. Oh, how much evil has been done in the name of the greater good. I say this to make a distinction. A people that sees itself as a collective mass are unmotivated in one regard and motivated in a different regard. They are unmotivated to break ranks because admitting the glaringly obvious that each person is an individual and so personally responsible for their choices and subsequent actions is to threaten the health of the mass. So they say. Likewise are the people motivated to continue in stride because as a mass they are beholden to the mass, while the unknown is not presented and is so not a danger. Basically this hive mind concept that as long as I'm in a large group with everybody else on the same page, everything will work out hunky-dory. That doesn't work out very well for lemmings when they go jumping off cliffs in mass numbers. The danger the people fear has always been the same. What is on the other side? What is on the other side is a general statement. What is on the other side as a general statement is designed to incite fear. Thus, an individual of mass opinion will not go if no one else goes. Where we go one, we go all. If, however, something is found revolutionary on the same side, it may be taken up by the collectives, people as a collective mass rather than the individual parts of the whole. Examples would include fads of fashion, the avant-garde, the retro, the vintage, political correctivity, social reconstruction, social justice crusades, and of course, breaking news. These exist because they bear the facsimile of change. Actually, that's facsimile. Depends on how you pronounce it. Neither here nor there. They are not change at all, any more than putting on a new pair of underwear is a change, save that the previous pair is stale and old. In true reality, it changes nothing. It is safe. And because it is safe, are we not protected from that which we fear? The dark. Which leads us to fear of the dark. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That is Psalms 23, verse 4. When we are born, we engage. When we are born, we emerge from the unknown into the known. Rather, we emerge from the previously formed known, a cocoon, and into the newly unknown, life as it presents itself. Our mothers, for we are all born of woman, was once an infant, and growing up feared the dark. We too, growing up, fear the dark. Our fathers, for we are all born of man, were once infants and growing up feared the dark. Always a monster in the closet or under the bed, but not only the darkness of the ignorance of that which is in the dark. The issue with this is that the only thing lacking in darkness is the presence of light. We are called to be light bearers. There could be a monster in the closet or under the bed, and knowing that it is possible is enough to convince us that it is worthwhile to be afraid. Do they not say, better safe than sorry? We do not tell our children this. We tell them that there is nothing to be afraid of in the closet or under the bed, and then we show them. And leaving them in their rooms, we shut the door, chuckling to ourselves that a child could be so silly. Then we go sit down in another room and watch a movie where monsters come out of hiding from all turns. Unstoppable monsters with sophisticated, grown-up themes. After we watch a movie where evil triumphs over good and all the campers are dead except the virgin, we switch over to the latest information about current events with sophisticated, grown-up themes. And watch as someone tells us that monsters are in fact real and may very well be coming to our home. Then we go to bed and stay up into the wee hours of the morning wondering, what if? We go to sleep in fear, don't get a decent wink, and wake up the next morning as we slept. The next night we again tell our children that there is no monster and go watch monsters and read about monsters. And so we are fed fear, and so we feed fear. A child is taught to believe in a magical gift giver who will reward them for being good and will punish them for being bad. This is an outright affront against God. Let me say that again. This is an outright affront against God and his way of working with us and through us. It is written in the scriptures that God pours out his blessings on the righteous and the wicked. The difference is the personal accountability we take for what we do with what we are given. It is an affront because it likens our Creator to a subjective God, little g here, who gives based on a subjective principle of that which man determines is good or bad. Eat your veggies or no presents for Christmas, rather than eat your veggies as a part of a well-balanced diet because it is good that you take responsibility for your personal health today, that tomorrow you will be prepared for that which you will encounter. Life is not safe. Nothing about life is safe, but it is beautiful, and it is good to experience it in its fullness. Yes, monsters exist. No, monsters do not have power. Aside from the power that is given by those who subject themselves to the fear of the monster. Remember it? The only recourse of the monsters is that they cause mankind to fear that which is unknown. That man not shine a light upon the unknown lest their fears be confirmed. What is to say that fear is not only a power... Who is to say that fear is not the only power that evil holds, and that fear itself is only powerful just so long as a person believes that fear is real? What I mean to say is, fear itself is an illusion and thus causes the monster. This is the same manner in which Santa Claus works, believe it or not. The manner in which God works is much different. In faith there is hope, in hope there is love, in love there is life, and life more abundant. The Creator calls us to bear light into the darkness, and once enlightening this darkness, utilize that which we find to create. And this is found the essence of what it means when it is said, in his image he made male and female. The Creator, the God of love, creates creatures to create and to love. It's a powerful bit. So we'll move on to a warning. Beware. No, not really. Don't be scared. But beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and have the most important seats in the synagogue and the places of honor at banquets. Luke 20, verse chapter 46. But not a hair on your head will perish. By standing firm, you will gain life. Luke 21, verse 18 and 19. A well-known literary character from the late 19th century is known to his dear friend as a wise, highly competent, judicious individual. One who well embodies in his spirit the immense power of the mind and the warmth of the heart to bring to successful conclusion many a difficult problem. Towards the end of one particular adventure, he says to his dear friend, "I am not afraid of death, for I have lived well. And if even in my death I can bring about an end to the machinations of this fiend, I can rest easily knowing that he," referring to his arch nemesis, "is no more. That being said, I am not such a fool as to err now and begin acting with reckless abandon." The protagonist here illustrates the difference between crippling fear and wise caution in several regards. He knows his enemy, and he knows the capability of his enemy, without compromising himself by dwelling in naivety. Because he knows this, he chooses to act accordingly, rather than to halt in his pursuit of this particularly evil man, that fear might be fed enough porridge to satisfy itself for a good night's sleep. He goes contradictory to fear because he understands that fear both exists as an illusion and that it will stop any kind of forward motion progress. Think CNN, fear, 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 every damn day. He also demonstrates an understanding of a righteous sacrifice, not to the self, but of the self, and that to its fullest extent. He cautions his friend likewise against behaving foolishly, not to instill fear, but that his dear friend be likewise warned of the danger of a snake, while yet making courageous foray into the world beyond. The difference here between caution and fear is that caution requires courage, whereas fear devours itself, that the thing feared have nothing to eat should it come into being. That is, fear feeds itself into the grave. Caution results from a commitment to the discovery of objective truth. Ahead is a deer crossing, or that the road ahead becomes submerged during a flood. Fear is a subjective fallacy, that ahead is a deer crossing and you should not go that way lest a deer jump out in front of you. Or that the road ahead becomes submerged in a flood and that you should not go that way for fear of floods in general. Also applies to hurricanes and, all that other stuff. That's not the point. Caution is a statement of what is. Fear incites right now opinion of what you should do based on subjective prejudice. Beware of dog is not an incitement to fear the dog on the other side of the fence. It's only a billet of information that's stating that you cross the fence into someone else's private domain, that there is a dog within which will greet you most warmly for your trespass. As this writing continues, this idea must needs expansion, for it is important to note that the subject here is not simply fear versus caution, but likewise needs include an examination of the subtle way in which words of objective caution are twisted into words of subjective fear. A thing in which certain modern organizations have become practitioners of artifice and expertise.